1, 2, is this on?
Wrestlers who have a legit personal problem with one another might choose to handle their business in the back, where there's no predetermined winner and it's just a plain old-fashioned brawl.
I thought that I put Taz and myself in a situation where we could not get out of it without fighting, without one of us killing the other one. And I knew which way that was going to go.
These conflicts often get settled without any punishment from the higher-ups, since historically the wrestlers policed themselves when it came to such issues.
Ernest says, "Don't be talking down on me." Whack! I slap him.
There's been plenty of locker room brawls over the years, and today we'll bring you a few that aren't as well known.
I had 2 steel shanks, chopsticks taped together, sharpened on the ledge, carried them with me every day because I was going to shank him.
As we list 10 times wrestlers got into real fights backstage.
And then I said, "The next time I'm going to put you in a wheelchair!"
Sometimes being too stiff in the ring can lead to talent coming to blows in the locker room after. This was the case on the December 11, 2003 SmackDown, when Eddie Guerrero hurt his arm whilst wrestling.
May have separated his shoulder, and look at the agony Eddie's in right here.
His opponent Charlie Haas then continued to work stiff with Eddie. This infuriated Latino Heat, who later confronted Haas. Also getting involved was their tag partners Chavo Guerrero and Shelton Benjamin.
But you talk about a scary fight. Four tough guys, legit. 4 shooters.
Tempers flared with a few punches being thrown before WWE personnel got involved. The two men shook hands following the bust-up and continued to wrestle in further matches with no issue. Haas explained the incident on the Kurt Angle show.
It was a fight backstage, and that's when they decided the word was, and it was like Shelton had enough, he threw the water bottle. Eddie pie-faced me, I shoved him.
During their rivalry in '99, Buff Bagwell and Ernest the Cat Miller disagreed about who would go over at the Road Wild pay-per-view. Bagwell was initially slated to win, but this was changed a few hours before. Buff thought the feud should end with him winning, and didn't want to do another match. Bagwell told the story on his YouTube channel.
We're not top-tier talents to carry this to another pay-per-view. So I said, guys, listen, I say that to the agent. I said, look, I don't want to do this. This is unnecessary. And as I'm explaining it for the 3rd or 4th time, Ernest says, "Don't be talking down on me." Whack! I slap him. So I waist lock Ernest and I calm him down, and they get us up and they break us up.
After the agents broke things up, Buff and the Cat were chewed out by WCW president Eric Bischoff. The Cat said he was upset with Bagwell impersonating him a few weeks prior.
Oh, look at Buff go! And he's got the red shoes on. Woohoo! The Cat is not gonna like this.
Which led to him getting in Buff's face right before the slap. Eric sided with Bagwell, and it was Miller who had to do the honors come bell time, but there was no heat between the two following the scuffle.
Into the head of the Cat, Buff rolls him up, 1, 2, 3, Buff wins it. He won it.
It's no secret that Goldberg had a hot temper and didn't like being disrespected, although what he perceived as disrespect might not have been intended as such. Case in point, when Evan Courageous attempted to shake Goldberg's hand while all the wrestlers were around the ring before doors opened. However, Courageous soon realized where Bill's hands had been, since Goldberg looked to be adjusting his privates underneath his sweatpants. Seeing this, Courageous pulled back his hand, which angered Goldberg enough to grab Evan by the throat and perform a shoot chokeslam. Shane Helms and Violent J from the ICP spoke about the interaction during interviews with Fightful and Rob Van Dam's One of a Kind podcast.
Evan was just being funny, like, "Hey man, can't shake my hand when you just scratch the balls," I mean, nothing like that should have been offensive, but
Lift him up by the neck over the guardrail, slammed him on the floor. And Evan Courageous went, hit the ground, bang. It did like a backward somersault on me. And he was like, "If I sue, will you testify in court?" Like, fuck no.
The second version of Sin Cara got into a few dressing room bust-ups during his run with WWE, one of which came in catering and also involved Simon Gotch in 2016. Gotch had rubbed a few people the wrong way, including Sin Cara, so much so that the luchador lashed out after the two were trading insults while sat at the same table. Sin Cara launched a coke can at Gotch, ran at him, and then the two began grappling until they were pulled apart. Simon discussed the brawl in an interview with John Pause.
I look back down at my plate and all of a sudden I feel I just stand up and yell, "What the fuck?" because my face started hurting and I couldn't see anything, and then my vision started to sort of clear, and as it cleared I saw Jorge rounding the table and running at me, and he sort of tried to do almost a double leg on me, and I, out of instinct, I reached around his neck and I just basically headlocked him. I grabbed him by around the neck, and then I grabbed his tricep and I pulled him tight to my body and started leaning on him, and then we just got pulled apart.
Sin Cara seems to have quite the winning record when it came to backstage scraps, since he's also said to have gotten the better of Sheamus and Chris Jericho. However, Simon Gotch also told a story where Sin Cara attempted to take down another wrestler, but ended up on the floor. The talent in question, Bray Wyatt, back in his developmental days. Sin Cara, meanwhile, was known as Hunico at the time.
It was the same thing. Bray got a good, dig in on him, and Jorge got mad and tried to like double leg Bray, and Bray was an amateur wrestler. His dad was an amateur wrestler. So he sprawled out and just put his weight on top of him. It's like, I ain't moving till he stop. 300 pounds. Jorge's a strong guy, but he ain't that strong. So he was just sort of stuck underneath him until he calmed down.
In 1989, Ken Shamrock received one of the worst beatings ever, dished out by another pair of wrestlers. It came courtesy of the Nasty Boys and all began in a bar after Brian Knobbs kept grabbing one of Shamrock's female friends. After words were exchanged, Ken got into it with Knobbs after Brian struck first. The confrontation was quickly broken up by security, but there was a lot more still to come. Later that night, Shamrock kicked in the door of the Nasty's hotel room. However, he ended up unconscious with a cracked sternum, broken nose, and damaged orbital bone after both men took him out.
Went to open the door, knocked me over the TV, and jumped on top of Knobbs and started punching him in the face. Knobbs was unconscious, or he's on the bed, he's laying there. So I went up and grabbed him off him, and he started punching me, boom, boom. Then we went at it. Long story short, I guess, he left on an ambulance.
Other wrestlers said Shamrock looked unrecognizable afterward. Ken described what happened from his perspective in an interview with RF Video.
And from what I understand, I got hit in the back of the head with one of those heavy phones, old-time phone things. Right. Knocked me down and they put the boots to me. That's all I remember.
The Nasty Boys' telling of the events differs somewhat.
I know for a fact I only hit him with my feet and fists when we fought, and that was it.
I don't know, I was sleeping. I just know when I woke up I was in a different bed and we were in a different room.
Other wrestlers have said they came into the room to see Knobbs passed out on the bed, while Sags was hitting an out-of-cold Shamrock with a large telephone. Sags then wanted to throw Ken off the room's balcony, but was stopped from doing so. Ken never did get his revenge, despite years of them talking trash, saying how they beat Shamrock up. Ken then once saw the duo at an airport, where he threatened each man while lots of wrestlers watched on.
I go, I'm gonna kick your fucking ass. And just like this, and looked at me and said, if you hit me, it's a felony. I just lost all anger right there, and I looked around, I'm thinking, He just pushed himself out in front of everybody.
The Nasties were interested in another battle, and nothing physical took place. Another vicious beating came courtesy of Jack Rougeau on the Dynamite Kid. Dynamite had a tough reputation, and was stiff in the ring while also being a vicious ribber backstage.
They got in the habit of defecating in the suitcases of people they didn't like.
Jock was a victim of these ribs to the point where he couldn't take any more and was going to complain about Dynamite to the chairman, Vince McMahon. Before he could do this, however, Dynamite got wind of the plan and destroyed Rougeau in the locker room.
So Dynamite walked in on Jock and just slapped him and knocked him off his chair. Basically, he almost knocked him out.
And then he kept punching me and kicking me in the face when I went down, and he said, you're going to tell Stu, he's going to tell Vince McMahon, you're going to stooge on me, you're going to...
Following the beatdown, payback was the only thing on Jock's mind.
I was in bad shape mentally much more than physically. I didn't want to do what was coming, I just knew I had to.
What do you mean?
Get revenge.
Jock knew that, his cred in the locker room was gone. He had to get it back or he was going to have to leave.
He got his revenge in brutal fashion by taking Dynamite out with a punch armed with a fistful of quarters.
And Dynamite was just trying to get his hands up and block. And Jock was just picking his shots, man.
And then I said, the next time I'm going to put you in a wheelchair!
Look at all the people that Dynamite hurt on purpose. And he got revenge for all of those people that didn't have the guts or had too many brains to do something about it.
Dynamite quit the WWF and sold his house shortly after the incident because Rougeau had spread a rumor around that he had ties to the Mafia, who would go after Dynamite and his family if he decided to retaliate on Jock in any way following the beatdown Dynamite received.
So when I stood up for myself, and then they quit the business right after. And when he took the beating, 2 weeks later, he quit the business. That Dynamite Kid, he just pulled out of WWF.
He said he saw an envelope, and inside of it had a picture of our house. Like, if there's any retaliation, like anything, your family's going to be dead.
Carlito had heat in his first WWE run due to various reasons, including for not applying himself enough, something which John Cena said directly to Carlito's face, stating how he should be more committed. This in turn led to a physical confrontation. Carlito described it as a drunken fight, where John jumped at him first, and the two had to be separated 3 times. Carlito was hesitant to throw a punch since Cena was the face of the company. Carlito said they weren't out to hurt each other, it was just a case of John wanting him to do better.
These are the only nuts Carlito will ever have.
The influence of alcohol likely blew the disagreement out of proportion, as neither star got in trouble for the skirmish. Road Warrior Hawk's conflict with Too Cold Scorpio in 1995 began after Scorpio was angry at Ric Flair for getting him fired from WCW a year earlier for throwing a coke party in his hotel room on a tour of the Caribbean. Hawk stuck up for Flair, which led to insults being traded and resulted in Hawk and Scorpio going at it on a bus full of other talent who separated them.
Anyways, when he swung, he missed. I hit them up about 5-6 times, and I was wearing his ass out.
Since the wrestlers were in North Korea on a peace treaty tour, Scorpio attempted to apologize after, but Hawk wasn't having any of it. This led to another brawl.
For every punch he threw, I hit him about 3 times. So I tagged him up about 20 times, shit, try to pull his eye out.
Scorpio then devised a plan to get Hawk with a makeshift weapon, before being talked out of doing so.
I had 2 steel shanks, chopsticks taped together, sharpened on the ledge, carried them with me every day because I was going to shank him.
This was due to the potential consequences for such an act given they were in such a strict country. Hawk and Scorpio were able to patch things up, though the tension remained even years later when they were in WWF together, but a third fight never broke out.
We ended up squashing there in North Korea, got to Japan. I was ready. That never happened.
Taz had heat in the ECW locker room because of how seriously he took himself. This irritated people since it made the human suplex machine come off as quite a jerk. Rob Van Dam was probably the opposite of Taz in this respect. However, if things came to blows, Van Dam's combat background could certainly come into play if needed, though RVD's run-in with Taz simply came down to an open hand slap. Rob told him to pick a hand, whacked him, and then threw a jab after Taz stood up. Van Dam revealed what happened during 2 interviews with kayfabe commentaries.
He put himself in a position where, how could you not have a problem with him? You know what I mean? He cared very much about his position, and he had his own visions, and he was very protective of that. He needed somebody to smack some reality into him, and it was a problem with all of us, especially me. There was a lot of insulting going on back and forth. I thought that I put Taz and myself in a situation where we could not get out of it without fighting, without one of us killing the other one. And I knew which way that was going to go.
And while speaking on his own one-of-a-kind podcast,
I was like, come on, Peter, you know where this is coming from. We're doing this. Put your hands up. We're fighting. And he's like, I don't understand. Like, what's going on? I said, you know what's going on, dude. I just smacked you in your mouth. This is happening. Come on, let's do it. And it was obvious he didn't want to fight.
Taz wasn't looking to fight, so he and Rob had a long talk that ended with them hugging it out and becoming friends. Now, if you enjoyed this video, be sure to check out our similar video on 10 WWE wrestlers who were punished for real-life trauma. Hope you have a great day, and I'll see you next time.